Hello fight fans, Mike of MMA with Friends on this rare sunny day in Seattle. Everybody please hit that like button for me. If you're new here, please hit that subscribe button. Don't forget to ring that bell so you're notified whenever I drop a new video or go live, like for the rematch, Tyson Fury versus Deontay Wilder, to February 22nd. It's coming up, guys. Let's get into the business at hand, though. Daniel Cormier and Stipe Miocic 2 was a battle. It wasn't the greatest comeback in the history of the UFC. I wouldn't say that. Maybe not even the greatest comeback in the history of the heavyweight division. But I think it was probably the greatest comeback in the history of a heavyweight championship history. There, as far as the UFC is concerned, great adjustment by Stipe Miocic to catch Daniel Cormier and come back with those body shots and win the rematch for the knockout. They are now 1-1. And Stipe Miocic, he's been out, he's been injured, but he was just cleared to return. And they ask him, who do you want to fight? Let's go back about a year and a half, 2 years, to when Daniel Cormier first won the championship. July 2018, to be precise. Daniel Cormier gets a flash knockout over Stipe Miocic. Stipe, the longest reigning heavyweight champion ever. Of course, Daniel Cormier says, I'd like to pursue other options. I'm not really wanting to fight you right away, even though he was the longest defending champion ever. So Daniel Cormier, he makes several excuses. He says he's got an injured hand, injured wrist, but that doesn't stop him from defending and cashing in on a payday against Derek Lewis, somebody who, wasn't even really considered probably a top 5 contender, and not somebody that very many people gave a chance against DC of winning. But it was nice, I'll admit, to see DC pick up a nice paycheck. I'm always glad to see these veterans go in there in an entertaining, somewhat competitive fight and pull out a paycheck. I think maybe it should be done more often. But here's the thing. 13 months later, he finally agrees, and the UFC kind of has to push his hand to give Stipe the rematch. July of one year, August of last year, he ends up getting the rematch. So if Stipe was to return the favor, and he has been injured. He was injured. He had those issues with his eyes, which seemed to have came from eye pokes from Daniel Cormier during their fight. So it should only seem fair if he is going to give a guy a rematch. A guy that, by the way, didn't have any defenses. Stipe won the belt. That's one. Then defends it 3 times. So that's 4 consecutive championship wins in a row. DC gets the one, thinks that he needs the immediate rematch, says it's the right thing to do. He said Stipe knows it's the right thing to do. Hold on. How was it the right thing to do? If you're Stipe, let me tell you why it's the wrong thing to do. For one thing, Daniel Cormier's style was a nightmare for him. And if Daniel Cormier finally decides to wrestle him, we're not sure how Stipe is going to deal with that. Daniel Cormier is an incredible wrestler. Stipe is a good wrestler. Daniel Cormier is elite. For the UFC, possibly bad, because Daniel Cormier is probably only going to come back for one fight. Now you have the heavyweight division up in the air. Curtis Blades just called out Stipe Miocic, and I thought that was smart on that part of Curtis Blades, of course. By the way, calls him out, and so maybe Stipe makes one defense before this. Remember, if he was to fight Daniel Cormier within 13 months, he would be returning the favor completely. Anything earlier than that, he's really almost showing weakness in my mind. You could argue that. I know Daniel Cormier is getting older. He's, right there at 40. I think he's about 41. He's around my age, and he wants to have one and done. And Curtis Blades mentioned, he said, this would be horrible for the heavyweight division, that trilogy, because if Daniel Cormier wins, then everything's up in the air. And I agree with him on that. Now let's look at benefits for Stipe. One, if he cares, he gets the win over Daniel Cormier. He puts the exclamation point on that trilogy. I don't think Stipe cares near as much as Daniel Cormier about that. I think he's a prize fighter. I don't think he's got a real big ego. I'm not saying he wouldn't like the win. Of course he would. Of course he wants to keep that belt more than anything. He loves being champion. He loves, being in Cleveland, going to the games as the champ. And you can't blame him. The other big thing is he's waiting out, of course. He could wait this out, maybe take a fight in between, maybe not, and wait until Dana White hands him a boatload of cash. The longer he waits, he starts to wait now, of course, the offer's going to go up. It's not going to go down because Stipe doesn't have to defend against Cormier, and Daniel Cormier is only getting older. But this is, for the UFC, I feel like this is the biggest draw in the heavyweight division. Stipe's already beaten Francis Ngannou. That rematch almost no doubt will happen, assuming Francis Ngannou gets by Jairzinho Rozenstruik, which I believe he will. But that trilogy, it is the money fight. It's the biggest money, I think, for everybody, which is why I think eventually it will get done. I'm not sure it should get done, but I think probably eventually it will get done. But I think Stipe is going to let Cormier wait a little bit. Let him get a little older and take some time to think about it, the same way Daniel Cormier did to Stipe Miocic. Let me know what you guys think down there in the comments below. Like I said, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. As always, I love you, I respect you, and I'll see your fine asses later.